Season 2, Episode 5. Today is Thursday, April 30th, 2020, for those of you keeping track. Today we have a really interesting guest. His name is Alan Goodman. He spent the beginning parts of his career with MTV and Nickelodeon and helped build out those brands, among other brands, including VH1, Comedy Central, you name it. I mean, Nick at Night, a lot of these household names that, at least my generation, we grew accustomed to watching, a lot of these TV stations, and worked on a number of successful television shows as well. So we're really fortunate to have Alan today. And, he's going to talk to us a little bit about those beginning stages with MTV and Nickelodeon and, some of the economic crises he's had sort of along the way, not personally, but how he's gone through them, as we all have. And then how he shifted gears to blockchain, and now he's working on a project called Aeryus. And for those of you who have been watching Pitch the World, last year we actually had the CEO of Aeryus, Nicholas Andrews. So if you want to check out that episode, you can just look in our archive, and you'll be able to watch that interview as well. So I'd like to introduce Alan Goodman. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know we're dealing with sort of a crazy time, an unprecedented time in this pandemic. How are you holding up?
Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to talk to you, and a great pleasure for me to be talking to your audience as well. I'm holding up well. I think entrepreneurs have a different point of view about situations like this. Look, we know that this is a horrible time for most people in the world. There's no one alive on this planet who has gone through anything like this before. And the stories every night about the way it's affecting people. I mean, financially, it's devastating. Personally and in the health realm, it's almost unimaginable. And for those of us who were at MTV at the beginning, we're all mourning a bit today because we lost someone very important and dear to us. Just yesterday morning, a man named Dale Pon, who was part of the advertising agency that created I Want My MTV and all of that work from the original days of the network. But beyond that, excuse me, I'm fine. Don't worry about that cough. Beyond that, he was
social distance.
Dale was a personal mentor to my partner in that era, and to me, he taught me every single thing I know about being impactful and making a point and making things big and huge and important. And I still smart. I've been rubbing the areas of my backside that still hurt from all of the places where he kicked me. But for anyone who came in contact with him in that era, we are all way better at what we do than we were before we knew him. So we're all feeling it very, very personally as well.
I'm sorry to hear.
But yeah, it's a big loss for a lot of us. But we're all going to have that now. Every one of us is going to know somebody, or God forbid, be that person who is affected personally by this. So we're rocked by it in terms of our health. We're also all entirely rocked by it because of what it's doing to the economy. But for those of us who consider ourselves entrepreneurs or innovators, I think we have a different reaction. I haven't had a boss since 1983. No one to provide a job for me, no one to provide me with health benefits and a retirement account and a place to go to work in the morning and an employee cafeteria with reduced price lunches. And there are a lot of people in that world. I forget the number. It's something like half or more of the population are small businesses who don't have that kind of corporate reality surrounding them to make things easier on them. So I think when you're an entrepreneur, your job is basically to solve problems anyway. So I think a lot of us are not coming into this situation wondering, what am I going to do? Oh, woe is me. When will I get my job back? We come into it thinking, what can I do? How can I help? What are the problems that I know how to solve that I can apply to this new reality? And so that's kind of where I find myself. And in fact, at Aeryus, we've already made some very big strides in this new, fortunately, blockchain technology is considered essential services. So, we're actually working and we're doing the things that we do to jump in and see where we can make a contribution and aid the effort.
Yeah. So before we get to Aeryus, and I definitely want you to touch on sort of as a summation on last year to this year of what Aeryus is doing, because obviously we're a big fan of that project here at Pitch Investors Live. I wanted you to talk about some of the beginning stages of your role with respect to MTV and Nickelodeon and how you helped elevate those brands, and which may have experienced some of their own challenges during some past economic crises.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It's not really dissimilar from my role and our work at Aeryus. At their core, MTV was not a rock and roll channel. And Nickelodeon was not a kids channel. At their core, they were ways to bring a voice and power and a way to express yourself in the world to audiences that never had that before. When I was pitched the idea of coming aboard MTV, which was 8-9 months before the channel actually went on the air, I had no idea what it was. And I said, what's this thing going to be? And they said, well, what the problem is, and this is very difficult for people to understand today, when there are 17 billion different ways to get content. But back in 1980, we launched in 81. Back in 1980, when I came on board to help plan and develop and create it, you maybe had 10 channels on your cable television set. You had cable to get 10 channels. There wasn't this wide range of ways of getting content. And when I came on board, I was told, young adults and older teens have no television that's for them. And that rang true to me because I was 27 years old and I didn't own a television because TV was for my mom and for my kid brother. There was absolutely nothing on television that I had any interest in or was targeted to me. So I immediately got it. And then a lot of us had worked in radio before that. I had worked in radio before that. And they told me it's going to work kind of the way radio works. Well, there'll be 20 or 25 songs that have pretty regular rotation, and then a wider list that has a lesser rotation, and then even more that, and I get it. Just like radio, you'll watch for 20 minutes, you'll come back later in the day, you'll watch another 20 minutes. You won't watch it the way you typically watch TV. You'll watch it the way you listen to the radio. So we all totally got that and understood immediately how to promote it and how it would be important. And there was never a doubt in our minds that it would be successful because it was the right product at the right time for the right audience that had nothing else to watch. Oh, and by the way, a way for advertisers who had no way of reaching that audience. Now suddenly advertisers had a way to reach that audience. So my involvement was things like working with the logo, developing all of the animation that ran in between the music videos. I had a partner at the time, Fred Seiber, who's still one of the closest people on earth to me. And we had known each other since college. We got involved in this together. And it was basically anything that wasn't a video or wasn't a VJ on the screen was the work that we were marshaling and heading up. So we then got assigned Nickelodeon, and we did basically the same exact thing. We took a channel that had existed already, but that kids were embarrassed to admit they watched. And we took it from lowest rated cable network to highest rated cable network in around 9 months without any programming changes, just by attitude, point of view, how we talk to kids. We took Green Slime and made it the star of the network. We took a style of music that nobody was listening to, doo-wop, and made Nick, 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 the Nick, 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 the signature sound of that.
Of course, yeah.
A musical composition that I still get 4 checks a year for. I'm registered with that.
That's great.
I was part of the compositional team on that.
Excellent.
So, in a sense, for me, the way it unites with what we're doing now at Aeryus was that it was about bringing opportunity away. Kids felt that they owned Nickelodeon. They felt that it wasn't for them, it was them. It was there.
They identified with it.
The MTV audience, same thing.
Yeah.
This is finally a channel for us, a channel for us. So that's kind of what we're doing with Aeryus, which is bringing the opportunity of blockchain technology to, you hear a lot of these days about small business, right? About how small business is the engine of this nation, how we got to get small businesses going again. We're bringing the benefits of blockchain technology to micro, small, medium-sized businesses, also known as MSMEs, that outside of the huge corporate world, bringing to that group of businesses supply chain management, cross-border payments, better reporting tools, better financial management tools, all of the things that small businesses just can't even bear to deal with. We're making it very easy for them to take advantage of that technology through the tools that we've created. That's one aspect of what we're doing. We're also working heavily in unbanked and underbanked areas of the world to bring financial inclusion and education to those populations. So we actually wrote and designed a course in blockchain technology that started off being taught in 3 universities in Ghana. We're now up to 9 universities that are teaching our, and we are expanding. I don't even think we were doing this when we were at Pitch Live last year. I don't think we had actually launched it yet. But we are now up to, hey, Larry Fogelman, we are now up to 9 universities in Ghana and just about to expand as well to Nigeria, where they've expressed an interest in carrying our course. So we've already taught somewhere between 600 and 1,000 students. 2 of those students have gone on to careers in banking. So we're extremely proud of it. We're doing it completely. We're funding it. We're providing it. So far, we haven't taken a dollar for it, and we're very, very proud of that effort and what we're making available to those students in those populations. So there's that. But then the particular area that we're working in, which is a very unique application of blockchain technology developed by your former guest, Nicholas Andrews, my CEO, who's scary brilliant. But the way he's developed our product, it's applicable in a lot of other ways. So we're now working with a tech accelerator in Africa to bring some of what we're doing to the banking industry over there, as well as moving into the medical field. So it's anything that involves storage and retrieval of data in a secure manner. That's what we're doing, bringing financial inclusion, bringing safety, security, putting you in charge, you in charge of our own data. So that's the area where, for me, it links up with everything I've done in my career. Just as we were able to make our own television network for people like us, rather than relying on other people to try to filter through their filter what that might be, we're now providing to people financial inclusion, financial freedom. Hold your own funds, hold your own accounts, manage your own affairs, land ownership. Proving you own land in Africa is a huge problem because
Yeah.
record keeping has not been wonderful, and there've been a lot of abuses and fraud and everything else. I can now carry that data and that information with me on my phone. These are the kinds of things that blockchain technology is making possible and making available. And to me, it's just extremely exciting. I'm really having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, so you sort of touched on this with MTV. You saw a void, and you filled the void with the demographic that was unaddressed. With
Right.
Nickelodeon, same thing, and you made it their own. With Aeryus, it sounds like blockchain and banking. What about the banking sort of resonates with you, and that you want to fill this void for sort of the underbanked and unbanked communities? And why has the focus been in places like Ghana thus far?
It's not just banking. Banking is what more broadly, a more broad view of it is transactions.
Okay.
So banking is one form of transaction. I'm going for a checkup tomorrow at the doctor, and they will access my medical records when I go there. Accessing my medical records is a transaction, right?
Right.
So any flow of data this way or that way, you can view as a transaction of one form or another. So that's the area that we're involved in. And how do you we could go into a little bit more basic stuff about blockchain technology and how it works and what it does.
I want to hear what sort of resonated with you, to shift from sort of the Hollywood space to blockchain and something what looks like on paper to be completely different. It's a whole different world.
Yeah, it's funny. There was an area, there was a period in my career in entertainment where I was writing a lot of speeches for the executives of the networks that I was advising, and I get a call one day from an executive saying, "I have to give a speech on how creativity leads to innovation, and I don't know where to start." And I said, well, that's because it's a stupid assignment. Creativity and innovation are the same thing. One doesn't lead to the other. Creativity is not what makes you innovative. Being pissed off with the status quo is what makes you innovative. Charlie Parker was maybe the greatest saxophone player who ever lived. He practiced 8 hours a day. Working hard makes you innovative. There are all kinds of things that make you innovative, but it starts with identifying a problem. I don't think entrepreneurs and innovators are people who, sit around in the tower thinking, what do I got in my head that I can put out there in the world that people might want? I think we get good at identifying problems and thinking about creative ways to solve those problems. So, for instance, at the Pitch Live event that Nick and I were at, that you guys sponsored last October, right? I think it was October in Miami. Remember, there was a guy there who, with an innovative way of dispensing soaps and lotions. Do you remember that? Do you remember?
Before we on air discuss that, there could be a confidentiality issue there. So I just want to.
Okay. Well, I wasn't going to say too much about it. And he's been pretty public in the world about it.
Okay.
So I don't have anything particular to reveal about it. All I was going to say was, if he hasn't readdressed that in his marketing, based on what's going on in the world, I'd be enormously surprised.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say, because there's stuff happening in the world. What do I know, or what can I do that can help fix that? And that's kind of what we do. And I think creating networks for kids and for teens was a way of dealing with a big hole in the market that existed at that time. And example of kind of how we work. We have an associate who had the idea of 3D printing ventilator parts.
Mm-hmm.
So he I don't know where he got the design or what the details of that were, but he thought, I can, and we've heard about this idea of using a ventilator to power three ventilator, two or three at once rather than just one. And he realized he could print the parts. And at that time, we were hearing on and on and on about where are the ventilators? We can't get ventilators. There aren't enough ventilators. Who can make ventilators? We're going around the world trying to find ventilators. And I was in the office with Nick that day, and I thought, isn't that something we can address? Isn't that a problem we can address? Working with this associate of ours who's making these parts, isn't there a way to apply what we know how to do to these devices to make sure that no one ever has to look for them? You never have to make a call. You never have to send an email. You just, their presence is always known based on how they're tracked in the blockchain. And we just got busy sort of scoping that out on the blackboard. And we fill the blackboard with ideas on how to address that issue and move ahead with it. And we're not really in a position to act on that today or tomorrow, but it was a really good exercise for us in how do we solve this problem in a way that no one ever has to address it before. So that sat there on the blackboard. And then we got a call a couple of weeks ago from another associate who thought he had gone through COVID and resolved. It turned out he ultimately tested. He never had the disease, although he thought he did. But he got interested in the idea of, as we now start to go back to work, how do we ensure that the people delivering my food are healthy? How do we make sure that the Uber I get into is being driven by somebody that's, how do we come in contact with each other again in ways that make sure I'm around somebody who has resolved from the disease? So we were sitting there thinking about it, and we looked up at the blackboard and we said, well, what if instead of ventilator parts, what if this is people? And we completely rethought the whole thing based on the essence of what we had dreamed up just a few weeks before, in terms of how do we use this technology to ensure that when I show up at your house with your Instacart order, you're dealing with somebody who's safe to deal with.
Yeah.
And we, in 2 hours, had the name, bought the domain, started developing the website, and this was 3 weeks ago. And I would say within a week, we'll be pitching it to people who could begin to employ it with whatever test becomes the test that we end up relying on, or range of tests that we end up relying on. Testing is still, we'll be there before the testing is there. But in any case, these were just some ideas that we were ruminating on for other things, and realized that there was nothing about the technology that prevented us from deploying it in this other area. So I think that's, entrepreneurs, I think, don't think this way. I think they think this way. How do I take this and apply it to this and apply it to this and apply it to this? We're sort of generalists. I don't know that I'm super good at anything, but I'm kind of okay at a bunch of different things. And that makes me, there are a lot of things I sort of have general idiot with my thumb in my butt kind of knowledge about. And I'm able to sort of work against that across a broad range of things. And by the way, I include TV in that. I don't know that I was ever the best writer. My ex-partner and I get a lot of credit for the MTV logo. Neither one of us could draw a straight line with a ruler. But we're communicators.
Right.
That's what we know how to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, in a nutshell, an economic crisis for the entrepreneur is just another opportunity to solve problems and to innovate.
Exactly. We don't, there are a lot of people rightfully and understandably saying, I don't know what to do. What am I going to do? And, we feel that. We all feel that. But a lot of us fall into a situation like this and say, okay, there are problems that need to be solved. And
You got to pivot. You got to pivot too. You got to figure out, your solution may not be the one that's solving the current problem. So you have to think through another solution and say, maybe I should pivot and switch to something different.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked in a lot of, as you mentioned, a lot of TV shows in addition to working on specific networks. And I've frequently been in that sitcom writer's room or a drama writer's room, and you're sitting there trying to come up with an idea. Have you written the whole scene, but you don't have that button, you don't have that last joke that ends the scene.
Right.
And sometimes I'm not joking when I say that there were times on sitcoms I've worked in where we were getting into our cars and driving home as the cast was arriving to rehearse the show. And we'd go home for a few hours to try to get a little sleep and then come back at noon to see a run through of what we had written over the night before. And so there are nights where you're just sitting there dying to come up with a line. And the person in the room who is the least useful is not the person pitching stupid ideas. The person in the room who is least useful is the person sitting there quiet.
Right.
Your job is to pitch. And I've been saying this my whole career. I pitch for a living. Fortunately, I've worked in advertising, which is all about, what about this? What about this? How about if we did this? Here's what we're trying to say. What if we said this? Advertising, television show writing, which is sitting in a room with a small group of people going, what about this? What about if he said that? What about if you're just ideas, throwing them out on the table.
Right.
And you cannot be concerned, you cannot be worried about saying something stupid, because you never know when the stupid thing you said
is the really smart one.
Well, it can often lead you. I can't tell you how many times this has happened, where it's been as a joke. She could blah 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 blah, whatever it is you say, and everybody laughs because it's ridiculous and you would never do that. But then somebody says, but you know what we could do,
right?
Because your stupid idea triggered a better idea that person wouldn't have had without your stupid idea. So you get used to, in those situations, not being shy, not being self-conscious, not being worried that you're going to be judged. You pitch. And I guarantee you, everything that we're doing with Aeryus, I have pitched Aeryus to more Uber drivers than I have to executives or entrepreneurs or investors. I've pitched it to more Uber drivers because I will pitch it to anybody. I will pitch it to anybody because every time I pitch it, I get better at pitching it. Every time I pitch it and I get a reaction, I know more about what the effect of my words are and how people are going to react to it. And so I'm not shy about getting into
it that way.
Yeah, get me started. Now, I'm not shy about getting into a car and telling a guy, hey, let me tell you what I'm working on, And, there are more Uber drivers that are ready to jump on board than you could ever imagine.
Yeah,
So
I
anyway,
know. I
so
know.
I pitch I feel as though I pitch for a living. That's what my work has been basically my whole life, whether it's advertising or writing shows or creating branding for networks. I stand in rooms and I tell people, this is what I think we can do. And sometimes I'm selling the idea, sometimes I'm selling me, because, look, I'm a firm believer that there are really very few opportunities in the world to create new ideas.
Hmm.
Think, MTV was not certainly the first music video network. It wasn't the only
It's
music
the
video
household
network.
name, though.
It was the one that lodged and became,
It's
ubiquitous.
MTV.
And, and so a lot of times it turns out to, who do they trust with the money? Who do they believe in you as much as they believe in your idea? I've had that in pitches where there's a PowerPoint on the wall and there are examples on the desk, and the executive is staring in my eyes because that executive just wants to know, I really believe in what I'm selling, and I'm not,
Are you credible?
am I credible? Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of it, and I think you get better over time. It's like any muscle that you work. I think you'd hear this from a lot of sitcom writers. I'm never funnier than when I'm in a room of other sitcom writers. There's
Hmm.
something about that environment that brings it out in you,
The energy. Yeah.
and I think it's the same with pitching.
Hmm.
You hear people talk about being serial entrepreneurs. They get good at it. You get, the more you do it, the better you get at it. And if you've got one idea and that's it, I wish you luck.
Well, you're really speaking to the core of what Pitch Investors Live is about. It
Yeah.
really gives people the opportunity to pitch as many times as they want to from the comfort of their own home during this economic crisis or otherwise, and to perfect the pitch, to learn from the investor, to learn from the feedback of the audience. And that's really what Pitch Investors Live was created to address.
Nick and I had a fabulous time at the event in Miami the end of last year, and everything you're saying is absolutely true. I found the investors, the angels, the sharks, whatever we want to call them. Are we allowed to call them sharks, or we're not allowed? Probably not allowed to call them sharks.
Former shark.
One former shark and a lot
Yes.
of potential investors.
Yes.
I can't remember. Were you there the day Nick and I did our pitch, the Saturday afternoon when we did our pitch?
I was not, but I heard you guys like absolutely crushed it.
We now, here's the interesting thing. We found out a half an hour before that we were going to be pitching. We had no dream of pitching in that room. We found out a half an hour before that we were going to be pitching, and we had never pitched together. Nick has pitched. I have pitched. He's been in LA. He was in I was in New York. He was in Florida. We've been all over, but never side by side. We had never done that before. And we're sitting there, and there were like 3 or 4 people before us, and so we're like, okay, I'll start. I'll say, okay, then I'll jump in. Okay, then and so we sort of figured it out while we're sitting in the row waiting our turn. But the thing we did have on our side was something that I was really surprised a lot of other people hadn't worked out, because they had no notice either. Most of them, they didn't know they were going to be pitching either. But here's what we knew: we knew our audience, we knew our product, we knew our numbers, we knew what our ask was. There were people there who couldn't couldn't tell you what their ask was. How much money do you need? What are you going to use it for? You got to know those things. And we were very conscious of the fact that the people we were pitching to get pitched 5 times a day from the car door to the door of their office.
At
And
least,
they
yeah.
had no time for anything extraneous. There was one guy there who started telling his whole life story and what he had been through and what he had got. And one of the investors cut him off and said, "We don't care. What do you want?" And it was, and I'm sure it felt brutal
It
at the
was great.
time,
It was a great learning
but
experience.
it was a great learning experience
Yeah.
because they don't have time. They don't have time. Get to the point. What do you want? What are you selling? How can I help? What do you want my involvement to be? Spell it out. So on the other thing we were really good at is we know how to tell time. We were told you've got 10 minutes and we're going to have questions, so leave time for questions. And so Nick and I said, we got to do this in 3 minutes. We got to nail our whole story in 3 minutes. Anything we don't cover, we can bring out in the question period, but we got to do it in 3 minutes. And we did. We nailed it in 3 minutes. We said everything we needed to say, and that gave them plenty of time to ask us questions. And we have formed relationships with at least 2 or 3, I would say 3 investors who were on that panel who followed up with us,
That's
who
great.
wanted to hear more, who are, eagerly waiting for what's your next step and, how can we be involved? So it was valuable in that sense, but it was also valuable to hear the feedback.
Yeah.
And for me to stand there and see exactly when the head started nodding, that was
That's
really
validation for you, right?
well. It was okay. This is the thing I said that makes it clear.
Right.
Now they're with me. Now they're, so getting that feedback was really important. And there was that session on Sunday where we could ask any question. And they went around the whole room, and everybody had 2 minutes to ask a question. And I think I asked, okay, let's say you want to give me the $500,000 that I need. Why should I say no to you? You want to give me the money. Why should I say no? And I can't remember who it was who answered, but one of the people on the panel said, you really want to look for people who are strategically aligned, who have some understanding of this business, who have relationships and contacts and the ability to move ahead with you. You're not really just looking for money. You're looking for people who can help because of their expertise or for instance, there was a guy in the room who had an energy drink. And one of the investors says, well, I'm in that space. And another investor said, well, you've got a license of a character there that's a really lousy license. I can renegotiate your license for you.
Right.
And the guy was funded. I mean, he walked out of there with commitments because there were 2 people on the panel who could legitimately help him and move him forward in his career. So that's, I think, the real advantage of what's going on there. You have a nice broad spectrum of people who are doing a lot of different things and who can help in a lot of different ways. And I found it very inspiring and very helpful, actually.
Well, let me ask you, pertaining to the now and sort of the current pandemic and unprecedented situation we have. I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are dissuaded from, let's say, continuing their startup, or from thinking, oh, this wasn't such a good idea now with what's going on, and maybe my product's not going to sell in this environment. Do you have any feedback or guidance for that sort of grouping of entrepreneurs?
Well, to be honest, the entertainment business that I'm from is generally considered to be recession-proof. And, we're seeing that now. What are people doing? They're staying home and streaming television shows.
That's right.
So, I've always benefited from the fact that, we couldn't be hurt in economic downturns. In the current environment, the thing to keep in mind is that you are always relevant if you are always living in the world and solving problems. It's about solving problems.
Hmm.
Innovating is about what I go on Kickstarter and Indiegogo for entertainment. Instead of watching TV shows, I go on. Well, what are people coming up with now? And I haven't done a real scientific study of this, but it seems to me that half the products are innovative ways to open doors without touching the doors.
Right.
New ways of creating masks that aren't like typical. Everybody's, looking for, how do I solve a problem?
Yeah.
Where's the problem? How do I solve the problem? And the problems don't go away. The problems might change a little bit from era to era, but they're all the same. The problems, we all are the same around the world, and we all have the same issues. The roof over my head, the food that goes into my mouth, the relationships I have with people who I love, the work that brings me sustenance and raises my esteem, the art and beauty that I consume that enriches my soul. We all need those things.
Hmm.
There's not a single organism that doesn't need some form of those things. And if you're looking at those issues and trying to resolve the problems that we have in obtaining them and using them, then you will find ways to be successful.
Right.
We had a long meeting today at Aeryus, socially distant, of course,
Zoom.
on the things that we're doing, and came up with another new application of what it is that we're doing. So I think you just have to be a problem solver. You just
Yeah.
have to see yourself as a problem solver. And I'm not saying that everything I've ever done in my life is as applicable at every point in my life. I came up with an idea for a television show in 1985, and I sold it. I sold the show. I sold it to ABC. I wrote the pilot. The people who commissioned it from me got fired, and that went away. But I wrote this show in 1985. I pitched it. I was told, we've never heard that idea before. That's a great idea. I sold it again in 1992. I almost sold it again 10 years ago. Producers, I consider myself a writer producer at the heart of everything that I'm doing. Producers don't, the word no has no meaning. No is just this noise I hear until I hear the word yes. So
Yeah.
we never throwing anything away. We never give up on anything. That show is still a great show. It's still a great idea. I've still never seen it done by anybody. And someday I might try to sell it again. I don't know.
Why not?
Not right now, because I don't think it's the right time for that show right now.
Mhm.
So you go in and out of time with some things. Things take a back seat. Things get moved more to the forefront. Some of the things that we were planning to do with Aeryus, we're holding back on some of those things right now,
Mhm.
because other things have presented themselves as more present opportunities.
Sure.
So I think it's just responding to the world. And this is one of the reasons why it's actually sometimes hard to take money from other people, because they may not understand your business. I've had a lot of friends in the entertainment world who've taken investment money, and 3 months later, the investors are like, "Where's our money? What happened? What's going on?" And the people who receive the investment are saying, "Well, the business has changed. I'm in the world. I have to respond. I have to move on." And a lot of people don't understand that, whose focus is on the return on their investment.
Sure.
And
Finding the right investor is important.
so you have to find people who understand that we're in a dynamic world and things change, and we have to respond to what's going on.
So let's shift gears to Aeryus. I know we're going to have some members from the Aeryus community either watch this live or watch the recorded version. How do you get Aeryus to become the next household name and that which is associated with blockchain?
How do we do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the we might not. I mean, Aeryus might end up being the Unilever, if you know what I mean. Unilever is not really a household name, but a lot of their products are. One of the things that we're doing that is really kind of unknown right now in the world in terms of other people sort of approaching the same thing is we're working a lot in the area of APIs, application programming interfaces. And just to give you an example of that, of what that is that your viewers and listeners might know, I go to a website for a store I want to visit, and there's a little map in the corner, and the map is I click on it, and it's Google Maps, right? So what that's an example of an API. The website hasn't had to create their own map. They haven't had to build directional information into a map so that I know how to get to the store. They access Google Maps, and there's a little pin drop on where their store would be. And each time that happens, they've signed an agreement with Google, and each time that happens, there's a little payment to Google. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of an area that we're focusing a lot on in blockchain technology is how do we make blockchains interoperable so that there's the equivalent of that in the world that we're in, that we can make something accessible, data, personal records, whatever it might be, on whatever basis anybody wants to share it with. How do we make that accessible to other people that I'm sharing my data with? So we're working a lot in that area. We would be working atop other businesses. We're right now working with a tech accelerator in another part of the world, in the banking sphere, mm-hmm. to make not your account records, but your authentication records available. So that if I show up someplace, I'm applying for a loan or I'm applying for whatever it might be, I don't have to reveal all of my information. I can just reveal the information that's needed for that particular application or that need. All of that becomes shareable, but not hackable, shareable on my terms, on my basis, right, for the people that I need to share or want to share it with. Mm-hmm. It can't be changed. It can't be fraudulently used. It can't be spoofed. It can't be duplicated. It's just the information that I want to share. So we're doing a lot of that, and we are also building some other products, a blockchain wallet, a payments function, a web store, all kinds of things that we're doing that you'll start to see within the next few weeks. We're moving very fast on a lot of different areas right now.
Oh, that's great. Is there a website you'd like to share, or maybe a recent article that the viewers at the pitch can?
Here, this is us, Aeryus.com, Aeryus.com. And you can see sort of, and we completed the website a few weeks ago, which means it's already out of date.
Oh, goodness.
We're just moving so fast in so many different areas, but it'll give you sort of a broad view of what we're doing for micro, small, and medium businesses who really need all the help they can get right now. We're working heavily in that area. We're working a lot in education in Africa, where many people think that blockchain could be where blockchain really flowers in that part of the world. They could end up leading the entire world in this new technology. And it's a very, very motivated populace over there in getting involved in it. So you'll be able to see sort of a broad range of things that we're doing in payments, in business tools for small and micro and medium-sized businesses, and in education.
Excellent, excellent. So let's just, if you don't mind, we'll take a couple of questions. I have some inquisitive family members that want to ask you some questions. So
that's great, perfect. And
yeah, Gianni.
I see Jonathan Fultz is there. Hi, Jonathan. Nice to see you there.
Okay, so my sister Sarah Kemper asks, for those of us with a rigid, she meant rigid, not Richard, that's an autocorrect issue, employers that don't welcome creativity, how would you suggest us pitching that?
Well, that's frustrating. I have spent a lot of my career advising big corporations. And mostly what I tell them to do is to stop being so damn corporate. And my frustration always, I spent 5 years at CBS. I spent a few years at what became MTV Networks before it was named that. And there have been other corporate associations of mine in the television business over the years. And I need to move. I need to move fast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why I can't have an idea and we can't be doing it already. And so if you're in a situation where you have employers that either aren't interested in new ideas or move too slowly on new ideas, you just might be in the wrong situation. I know it's extremely frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you one trick, and this is not original. A lot of other people have heard this and counseled this, but it certainly worked for me. One of the things that I have done is if you give up on the notion that it has to be your idea, you have a better chance at being successful in getting it done. So, I can't tell you how many television deals have gone sour for me because people couldn't agree on who was going to be called the executive producer. Wow. Or who was going to be called the creator, or who was going to be, and I just decided a long, long time ago, as long as I don't care about whether or not I get the credit for it, I'm going to get a lot more done.
Yeah.
And if your goal is to get things done and not to get credit for getting things done, sometimes it's a better approach to just forget about the credit. I have built associations with people where it's almost in collusion with them, where you kind of get them to think it's their idea. And then they come in and then you go, wow, that's amazing. What a great idea that is. You almost get them to feel as though they pitched it.
Right.
They had the idea. That can work. It can also work to, get team members who believe in what you believe. I was always frustrated in corporations. I have to be honest, when I was there, because I felt I don't want to say I like your stupid idea so that you say you like my stupid idea. Yeah. I just want good ideas. Right. I just want to be working with good ideas. And it can be tough, but I think if you're willing to give away credit, if you're willing to team up with other people and try to get some buy-in before you go in for the pitch, you might find you have a little more success.
I think you'd be a great mentor for entrepreneurs, by the way. Just some of the advice that you've given in this has been tremendous. I really hope that, people rewind this, listen to some of the feedback that you've given, because it's been outstanding.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, it's my pleasure. I enjoy it. Lord knows I love talking.
So I think we got one more question, unless, okay. This one comes from my dad, Robert Kemper, who's like the rest of us, quarantined right now. What will the entertainment business do when they run out of new content? That is within the contagion, limiting the ability to produce new episodes. Yeah.
Right, because we can't go to sound stages and shoot new episodes of television shows, and I can't shoot anything where somebody walks into the room and says, "Hi, honey," and throws her arms around her and gives her a great big kiss. Right, I understand. I think what you're seeing is an enormous amount of innovative new ways of producing content. And I don't think that's going to stop, because creators got to create.
Yeah.
It's just what we do. So what's his name from The Office, who has that show SGN, Some Good News?
Hmm.
It's got a big following. People are watching that like crazy. I've been watching Julia Louis-Dreyfus and cast members from Veep
Hmm.
do hour long programs on YouTube and other platforms, just talking over old episodes and reminiscing and raising money for charity, because that's why they're doing it. They're raising money for charity, and those have been fantastic. I watched the other night a tribute to Stephen Sondheim on the occasion of his 90th birthday, where every star was singing alone to a pre-recorded piano accompaniment from their basement or their living room or the field outside their house or wherever it was that they were performing. And those things were fantastic. There's this wonderful play called Buyer and Seller, which is a one-man play. And it's about a guy who gets hired to curate the contents of Barbara Streisand's basement memorabilia in her Malibu home. And I've seen the play before. It's a brilliant play.
Yeah.
And the actor who performed it off Broadway did it for a streaming audience from his apartment. And it was fantastic. It was just so entertaining. And so I think that I think we'll be able to rely on content creators to continue to find ways of creating content. I'm not worried about that at all. And I find I've been, like everybody else, I'm sort of watching a little more than I have been.
We all are. We all are. It just seems to me that the ideas don't go anywhere. It's the medium that it's expressed through might change.
There used to be vaudeville. Now there's not. Entertainment creators always find a way to to deal with whatever the presentation medium is. So
right. Right.
I'm confident that we'll continue to do that.
Excellent. Excellent. Any final words to the Pitch Investors Live, Pitch the World, Aeryus audience that you want to share with us on this April 30th day in 2020?
Yeah, be prepared. Be prepared. Know your numbers, know your product, know your audience, know your segment. Pitch to Uber drivers.
No reason not to. Awesome.
That's my advice. Pitch all the time. Never be not pitching, because it makes you a better pitcher.
Great words, wise words. Thank you so much, Alan. We really appreciate you joining.
I really appreciate your asking me. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day.